Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of people watch these videos but don't subscribe? If you enjoy stories of justice and payback, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to like the video if you're ready for today's story. Let's get to the story. My name is Thomas Blake. I'm 38 years old, and for most of my life, I considered myself an average man living an honest life. I worked hard, paid my dues, and loved my wife with everything I had. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside of Cleveland where people knew each other's names, waved on their morning walks, and left their porch lights on just a bit longer for late arrivals. It was a calm life. Predictable, maybe, but it felt like peace to me. I met Emily when we were both in our late 20s. She was warm, smart, and carried herself like someone who had nothing to prove but everything to offer. She worked as a dental hygienist, always smiling and making people feel at ease, even in the dentist's chair. I was a regional manager for a construction supply company, nothing flashy but stable. We had similar goals, a shared love of quiet weekends, and a desire to build something lasting. We got married after 2 years of dating. The wedding was modest, held in her parents' backyard. It rained that morning but cleared up just in time. Emily looked stunning, and I remember thinking I'd hit the jackpot. Life after the wedding wasn't some fairy tale, but we were happy, or at least I thought we were. We bought a house, planted a garden, argued about furniture, laughed during bad movies, and took road trips with a broken GPS that always got us lost. I thought those moments were real. I thought they meant something. Things started to shift about 2 years ago, though it took me longer to really notice. At first, it was small things. Emily coming home later from work, brushing off her phone like it was nothing when I walked into the room. She started going out more with her friends, and when I asked who, she'd give vague answers. I didn't press. I didn't want to be that guy, the suspicious husband with control issues. So I trusted her. I gave her the space I thought she needed. Looking back, I was a fool. There were signs, clear ones, but I ignored them. A sudden change in her wardrobe, more attention to her appearance, phone calls she took in the backyard where she thought I couldn't hear, and the distance, emotional and physical. Our conversations became shorter. She stopped asking about my day. Her laughter, once natural and easy, sounded forced, like she was performing. I kept telling myself it was a phase, stress from work, maybe early burnout. I made excuses for her because I loved her, because I believed in our vows. Then one night, everything changed. It was a Saturday. She told me she was meeting her friend Clara for dinner and a movie. I didn't question it. I even offered to drive her, but she said she'd already arranged everything. Around 9:30 p.m., I was on the couch half watching a basketball game when I heard a soft chime. Her iPad was still logged into our shared cloud account, and a message popped up. It wasn't from Clara. It was from someone named Jay. The message read, "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you." My heart sank. I felt this strange coldness crawl over me, like my blood had turned to ice. I opened the message thread. There were dozens. Some flirtatious, others more emotional. "You make me feel alive again," one said. "Can't wait until he's out of town," read another. That one hit me the hardest. It wasn't just physical. It was a connection, one she used to have with me. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the screen. I wanted to scream, to throw the device across the room, to drive to wherever she was and confront her on the spot. But instead, I stayed calm. I didn't let emotion take over. If she had been lying to me, I wanted the truth. All of it. Not half-baked excuses or tearful confessions manipulated by guilt. When Emily came home just before midnight, I pretended nothing was wrong. She smiled faintly, kissed me on the cheek, and said the movie was just okay. I nodded, asked if she wanted tea, and she said she was too tired. She went upstairs to shower, and I sat at the kitchen table, quietly deleting the messages from the iPad, saving the evidence elsewhere, of course. I was already planning my next steps. The next few weeks were agonizing. I acted normal, maybe even more attentive than usual. She didn't suspect a thing. That hurt the most. How easily she seemed to live this double life. I started digging, methodically. I checked phone records, tracked her car's location through our shared insurance app, even followed her once, though I hated myself for it. She met him at a small restaurant in the next town over. They hugged like lovers. He kissed her neck. That night, I sat in my car for 2 hours, trying not to cry. His name was Jason Whitmore. I eventually found out he was a pharmaceutical rep. Divorced, no kids. He looked like the kind of guy who always knew he was charming. Slick hair, smug smile, expensive watch. I dug deeper than I should have, but I needed to know everything about him. Every detail made me hate him. More, but none of it compared to the bitterness I felt toward my wife. She had chosen this, chosen him. She had wrecked everything we built and didn't even seem to care. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started playing my own game. First, I made a copy of all the evidence: texts, emails, photos, car logs. I created a secure folder on a flash drive, stored one at work and one in my home office. I met with a lawyer under the guise of a work-related legal inquiry and quietly updated my will, changed my financial authorizations, and froze our joint line of credit. She wouldn't know until it mattered. Then I started preparing the house. I installed small cameras, nothing illegal, just in common areas. I wanted her to hang herself with her own actions. And she did. Several times I caught her on camera whispering into her phone in the laundry room, sneaking into the bathroom to text while dinner simmered on the stove. I kept collecting. I documented everything. I wanted revenge. Not through violence or public humiliation, but in a way that would leave a mark. I didn't want her to walk away with half of everything I worked for. I didn't want her to paint herself as the victim in some emotional tale of we just grew apart. I wanted her to feel what I felt. The betrayal, the helplessness, the weight of knowing someone you trusted treated your heart like a cheap, disposable thing. I waited until our anniversary. She planned a weekend trip to a cabin in the woods. I acted excited, packed her favorite snacks, brought a bottle of wine. She was unusually affectionate, and I wanted to believe it was guilt. But maybe she was just good at pretending. On the last night, we sat by the fire. She leaned against me, and I asked her, "Do you ever think about what honesty really means?" She laughed nervously, said I was being philosophical. I looked her in the eyes and said, "I mean it. Have you ever lied to someone you loved and watched them suffer without knowing why?" Her face tightened, just for a second. A flicker of panic, but she recovered quickly. "No," she said. "Have you?" I nodded and said, "Yes." But not anymore. She didn't understand then, but she would. When we got home, I told her I needed to go on a short work trip. Just 2 nights. She seemed unusually happy about it. While I was away, I parked my car in a friend's garage and stayed at a hotel across town. I accessed the camera feeds from my laptop. Sure enough, the moment she thought I was gone, she invited Jason over. I watched them drink wine in my living room, sit on the same couch we picked out together, laugh like teenagers. When they went upstairs, I closed the laptop. I didn't need to see more. That was the final nail. When I returned the next day, I didn't even mention the trip. She was cold, probably hungover, and made no effort to pretend otherwise. I told her we needed to talk. She looked worried, like something in her gut finally warned her that the mask was about to fall off. And then I told her everything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I laid it all out. Dates, locations, messages, videos. Her face drained of color. She tried to interrupt, to cry, to explain, but I kept talking. When I finished, I stood up, handed her a manila envelope, and said, "These are divorce papers. I've already filed. My lawyer will contact yours. I'll be staying with my brother until you move out." She froze. "You want me to leave?" I nodded. "This house was mine before we married. Your name's not on the deed. You'll be gone by Friday." Her tears didn't move me. I walked out, knowing this was only the beginning of her unraveling, and I was just getting started. I stayed with my brother for the first week after I served Emily the divorce papers. His place was quiet, a little outside the city, tucked near the woods. He didn't ask many questions, just gave me a place to sleep, a few beers, and the space to breathe. I didn't tell him everything right away. I wasn't ready to say it out loud, to admit that my wife had been cheating on me for over a year and I had let it go on, right under my nose. It was humiliating, even in the safety of my brother's living room. But the quiet gave me time to think, to plan. Emily texted me the second night, a long paragraph filled with apologies, excuses, and desperate promises. I didn't reply. She tried again the next morning, then a voicemail. She cried through the whole thing, swore she never meant to hurt me, said it was a mistake, said Jason didn't mean anything. I knew that was a lie. He meant enough for her to lie to my face for months. She chose him over and over again. It wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. By Friday afternoon, my lawyer called. Emily had signed the divorce papers, though not without some resistance. She tried to negotiate, offered to talk things through, but by then the legal wheels were already in motion. She had no financial leverage, and I made sure of that, long before she ever suspected I knew. I returned home the following Monday. The place was quiet. Her car was gone, and so were her clothes, the framed wedding photo from the hallway, and oddly enough, the cheap mug I gave her one Valentine's Day. She didn't take much, probably stayed with friends or maybe even Jason. I didn't care. I was done mourning. What I needed now was to make sure she never forgot what she did. People like Emily want to control the story. They want to rewrite the narrative so they come out the hero, or at the very least, the misunderstood one. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I started talking, quietly at first. I met with a few of our mutual friends, people who had known both of us since the wedding. I didn't dramatize it, I didn't badmouth her, I just told the truth. I showed a few screenshots of the messages, mentioned the night I caught her sneaking Jason into my house. One of our friends, Rachel, actually gasped. "Wait, she told us you were distant, that you might be seeing someone at work." That's when I realized Emily had already started rewriting the story. In her version, I was cold, neglectful, absent. She'd laid the foundation to make her betrayal seem justified. Maybe she thought it would protect her image, or maybe she was just preparing for the backlash she knew was coming. Either way, I made it my mission to set the record straight. I never raised my voice, never accused her of being evil or manipulative. I just told the facts. Facts backed up with hard evidence. Screenshots, emails, GPS logs. Every conversation I had with someone she lied to slowly started peeling away the version of events she had constructed. And it worked. People who once called her the sweet one started pulling away. She lost invitations, got icy responses to her messages. Her carefully curated social circle began to crumble. But I wasn't finished. Jason was next. He wasn't some random guy. He worked in our community, and that meant he had a reputation to protect. I didn't want to ruin his life, I just wanted him to understand that actions have consequences. So I paid a visit to his office. I wore my calmest expression and asked to speak with him privately. At first, he looked smug, like he expected a fight and was ready to flex. But then, I handed him a thin folder. Inside were copies of his messages to my wife, some photos, and a list of dates that coincided with corporate functions his boss might be interested in. "You don't have to worry," I told him. "I'm not going to make this public, but I want you to understand something. What you helped her destroy wasn't a fling. It was a marriage. And I have no problem letting your higher-ups know that this little side project of yours happened on their dime during their events." His smile disappeared. He tried to act cool, said he didn't owe me anything. I just nodded and left. I didn't need his apology. I needed him scared. And he was. I knew because a week later, Emily called me, furious. Jason had ended things. Just cut her off, told her it wasn't worth the fallout. Apparently, his company had launched an internal review, and although nothing public came of it, he backed away fast enough to make her feel abandoned. I won't lie, I took some satisfaction in that. The next phase of my plan was quieter, but just as calculated. Emily had left behind traces of her life in my home. Photo albums, old letters, keepsakes. I gathered them all into a box and shipped them to her parents' house without a note. I deleted every shared account. Netflix, cloud storage, banking, Spotify. I wanted no connection left. I was erasing her from my life one pixel at a time. I changed my number next, closed the last open door. After the divorce finalized, I made a single post on social media, just a plain black square with a short message. The truth always surfaces. Thank you to those who stood by me. That was all, no names, no drama. But it sparked a quiet fire. People started asking questions, and she, who had once been so concerned with appearances, was left to squirm under the weight of her own lies. Eventually, I heard through a friend that she tried to clarify things online, said it was a private matter, claimed I was being vindictive. But by then, too many people already knew the truth. She had poisoned her own well. As for me, I began rebuilding. It wasn't easy. Some days I felt hollow, like I was still trapped in the shadow of a life that never really existed. But I poured myself into work, into my health, into reconnecting with old friends. I found joy in small routines again, early morning jogs, books I'd long ignored, long drives with the windows down. I made peace with the fact that I had loved someone who didn't love me back in the same way. And that was no longer my burden to carry. One day, several months later, I saw Emily at a grocery store. She was alone, standing by the produce aisle, staring at a stack of oranges like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. She looked thinner, older somehow, not physically, but worn, like a threadbare version of the woman I used to know. She noticed me. Her eyes widened. She smiled, hesitant. I gave her a small nod and walked past without a word. That was the last time I saw her. I don't hate her, not anymore. But I'll never forgive her. What she did wasn't just infidelity. It was betrayal on a level that changed who I am. She shattered something sacred and walked away like it was a dropped dish, something that could be replaced or swept up. But I made sure she'd never forget that every lie she told cost her more than she expected, that the man she underestimated would never let her rewrite the ending. And the best part? She did it to herself. Life after betrayal isn't something you prepare for. There's no manual for waking up alone after years of sharing your mornings. No guidebook for learning to live in a house that once echoed with laughter and now feels like a memory museum. But I managed. Slowly, intentionally, and with far more clarity than I'd ever had during my marriage. In the months following the divorce, something inside me shifted. I no longer cared about proving anything to anyone. The revenge wasn't about destroying Emily or Jason. It was about making sure the truth wasn't buried beneath their lies. That part was done. The dust had settled, and now it was about rebuilding. Not just my life, but myself. But that didn't mean the story was over. Not quite yet. One afternoon, I got a message from Rachel, one of the mutual friends who had distanced herself from Emily after everything came out. She worked in HR at a marketing firm downtown and said she'd bumped into Emily during a professional seminar. Apparently, Emily had been job hunting. Jason's company had let him go, quietly, without making it public, and he'd left town soon after. Emily, no longer under the illusion of their future together, was now floating aimlessly between temp jobs and couch surfing. She asked about you, Rachel said. Said she regrets everything. I almost laughed. Regret? That's what people say when the consequences finally catch up. She wasn't sorry when she lied. She wasn't sorry when she brought another man into our home. She was sorry because her lies cost her everything she thought she could control. That's not regret. That's exposure. Still, I said nothing. I told Rachel I appreciated the update, but I didn't want to hear about Emily anymore. She was the past and I was focused on the future. By that point, I had sold the house. Too many ghosts in those walls. I moved into a loft near the river, smaller, but mine in every sense. I bought new furniture, painted the walls a deep slate gray, and hung framed prints of places I wanted to visit. It was my space now. No more shared closets, no more tiptoeing around invisible tension. I slept better, breathed easier, and I changed my job too. I had spent years in the same office, loyal to a company that barely knew my name. After everything fell apart, I realized how much of myself I had given to things that didn't serve me. So I left. Took a risk. Joined a startup with a friend of mine who had always believed in my ideas. It paid off. Within 6 months, we had landed 3 major clients. My role grew. My confidence returned. One evening, I attended a networking event. Nothing special, just suits and small talk. But something strange happened. A woman approached me. She looked familiar, though I couldn't place her. "Are you Daniel?" she asked. I nodded. "I know this is random, but I'm Emily's cousin, Jessica. We met once at your wedding, I think." I froze for a second, unsure of how to respond. "She talks about you sometimes," she continued. "Said you were the best thing that ever happened to her, and the one thing she completely ruined." I didn't say anything at first, just studied her. She looked kind enough. No agenda. But her words stirred something in me. "She's not doing well," Jessica added. "And I'm not saying that to make you feel guilty. I just thought you should know." I thanked her politely and walked away. That night, I sat on my balcony staring out at the city skyline. The words replayed in my mind. The best thing she ever ruined. It was strange. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I just felt nothing. Like I'd finally crossed some invisible threshold where her name no longer stirred emotion. It was the closure I didn't know I needed. But one final thread remained. I remembered the journal Emily used to keep. A little leather-bound book she wrote in every week. She'd once told me it held her private thoughts, and I had respected that boundary. But after she left, I found it tucked away in a drawer she must have forgotten to clear. I hadn't opened it. Not until that night. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity, maybe. Closure, definitely. The entries started off normal. Work stress, weekend plans, recipes she wanted to try, but then, as I flipped further, things darkened. Regret bled through the ink. Doubts, guilt, rationalizations that shifted over time into self-loathing. There were pages where she called herself a coward, a liar, even a monster. One line stood out. "I thought I could control the damage, that if I just kept smiling I could keep him and still chase something new, but I lost both. And now I don't even know who I am." I closed the journal. For a long time, I had blamed myself for not seeing it sooner, for not being enough. But the truth was, Emily wasn't running from me. She was running from herself, and no amount of love could have fixed that. I mailed the journal back to her. No note, no warning, just the raw mirror of her own words. It was the last gesture I ever made toward her. A gift in a strange way. A reminder that I saw her, even when she didn't see me. That I knew who she really was, and that I didn't need to destroy her to move on. The truth did that on its own. A year passed, then another. I began dating again. Carefully, slowly. I didn't jump into anything serious. Trust, once shattered, takes time to rebuild. But I met good people. I laughed again. I learned that love can still exist after betrayal, that not everyone is hiding a second face behind the one they show you. But I was different now. Wiser. Stronger. Unshakable in ways I never was before. And most importantly, free. Sometimes people ask me how I handled it so well, how I didn't lash out, how I didn't turn bitter. I tell them the truth. I didn't need to ruin Emily. She did that all by herself. I just stepped back and let the truth catch up. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes the quietest revenge is living well, moving forward, thriving while they unravel. And me? I'm thriving. The life she abandoned is the one I reclaimed and improved. She thought she could break me, trade me in, rewrite the narrative. But she underestimated one thing. I wasn't the man she thought she was cheating on. I was the man who walked away with his dignity intact and made sure she'd never forget why she lost me. And that, right there, was the real ending. The one I wrote.